Within each and every role player lives this homeless character who wants nothing more than to quiet the heartbeat of every living thing that stands in his way. Today we celebrate this all too familiar character with...
Well now, looky here. It's the Murder Hobo Show.
Welcome to the Murder Hobo RPG Show, Episode 7, Railroadin. Recorded December 5th? 5th? Yes, it's the 5th, buddy, 2019. I'm one of your hosts, Gary, a.k.a. the Murder Hobo, and I am here with this little sexy kitten, the lovable, the squeezable, but not too hard, or he's gonna shart, Uncle J-Raz, a.k.a. Captain Colon. What's going on, my man?
Oh, not a whole lot, my man. What's going on with you? And yeah, my intestines and my lower bowel region, they're volatile like Mount St. Helens, so you don't want to squeeze too hard like the Charmin. So,
wow.
Yeah. Do you remember that, though? Do you remember when that erupted? We roughly lived in the same area.
I can tell you exactly what I was doing when that bad boy went off. Exactly.
Me too.
It was early in the morning, I'm pretty sure. I mean, unless my memory is like deceiving me. But I'm pretty sure that St. Helens blew up probably around like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was sitting at home and I was watching Fantastic Four, the old cartoons. And the thing had just lifted up the side of a building. And in doing so, the windows to my house started to roll, shake, rattle, and roll. And I just about shit my pants there on that one. I thought he was outside. I went outside and looked to see if he was like lifting the building of my house up there.
No, but then it turns out you looked at the sky and there's just a big black cloud of ash that just covers everything. That's what I remember. And you were closer to the coast, too. I was in eastern Washington when that happened. And I was outside playing in the park. And then we saw this big cloud of ash came in, and you just heard this big-ass boom. And I'm like, I better go inside. Didn't look good. And then we were all covered with ash, and we had to leave town for a little bit. It was crazy.
Wow. Yeah, that was something else, wasn't it? There's some pretty interesting videos that you can watch about the recovery, or not the recovery, the state of Mount St. Helens right now. Like videos of what's going on there. I keep having to adjust my knobs because I see that my levels are kind of going a little crazy on me, and I'm not sure what's happening here.
No, I have to adjust my knob every once in a while, too, so it's okay.
Right? Sometimes mine turtles in there. Man, I'm telling you, I'm full on major IBS today. Wow, I went out and bought some stuff. Did you do any cyber shopping? Did you get any Cyber Monday deals? Any what do they call that? Black Friday? Flash Friday?
Or Cyber Monday or whatever?
Right.
I just a touch, though, because I get guilted into buying stuff for me around the holidays, because then it's like, the wife now, she needs to find stuff for me to buy for Christmas and everything like that too, because we still, we do that sort of thing. And so if I start buying like a whole lot of crap for me, she's going to be like, well, what the hell? Why are we even, doing the Christmas thing? So I can sneak in a little bit of stuff, not a whole lot. And I did take advantage of a couple things on DRIVETHRU RPG, but that's about it. Oh,
wow, man. I went hardcore, dude. I probably spent over $1,000. I bought myself a sous vide machine, which is cooking in a vacuum. So you basically vacuum seal things like steaks and whatnot, and then you put them in hot water, and the sous vide machine will maintain a consistent temperature. So you could cook a steak for 2 to 4 hours, and it's going to come out medium rare no matter what you do, as long as you set the temperature right. So I thought, I'm going to get me one of those because I kind of suck at making steaks. And you pull it out and it looks like a lumpy kind of gray, intestinal discharge kind of a looking thing. But you want to throw it in the pan with some oil, a little bit of butter there, and get a nice sear on that thing. And it turns out looking like a real steak when it's all said and done. So I'm pretty happy about that. I bought a vacuum sealer with it. And then I realized I was thinking, I'm the worst shopper in the world. I got to tell you, like, I'm horrible at this stuff. So I buy this thing, and then I'm like, man, they got a Wi-Fi one. Order. So now I got a Wi-Fi one that I can hook up at work. I can set my stuff up the night before, and I can get my dragon breasts in my sous vide, and I'm trying to keep this RPG related. But I bought one of them. I bought an Instant Pot so that I can make my my goblin souffle.
Your potions.
Right. And then I realized they made a Wi-Fi one of them too, and I should have bought it, so I'm a little mad that I didn't. But Yeah, this all spouted from the IBS conversation because, man, I left Save on Foods there, and man, it was a 10-minute dine and dash to get home. Except there was no dining; it was all dash. I threw all the groceries in the back of my friggin' car, and I shot home in my little electric wagon. I timed the traffic to turn onto my street, like I literally was doing like probably about 100, just so I could get through this little opening. I shot up to my house. I left all the groceries in, came flying in, slammed every door in the place, dropped my trousers, and at 48 years old, pooped all over the toilet seat, man.
Yeah, and that's Thursday,
right?
you know.
Jesus, man, it's been rough.
I feel for you, buddy. Especially, you guys celebrate Thanksgiving a little earlier than we do here in the States, so we eat a lot of rich food around this time. And so a lot of, it's been, the holidays are usually, intestine-tastic, as I like to call it. So I feel for you, buddy. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the pumpkin spice that's going on, or if it's just something in the air that, makes you have to go, make the mad dash to the throne. So I feel you, man.
It was Whopper Wednesday yesterday, and I kind of passed up on Whopper Wednesday yesterday, so I thought I would treat myself today, and the Whopper just gave me a gut punch. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So, anyways, let's not talk about that. Well, for a few minutes anyway, because this is a podcast about role-playing games, not IBS. We're going to ramble incoherently in an attempt to sound like we know what we're talking about, and hope you don't call us under bullshit.
That's right. And so in this episode, we're going to cover some news, community questions, which I think was a big hit. And we're going to cover the hot topic. In fact, it's a hot button topic right now, and it's been for a long time. And that's what we talked about at the beginning. Choo-choo railroading. Your players and what it's all about. And also, too, we're going to throw in this the introduction of the old-timey adventure. It's something Gary cooked up. I think you guys are going to dig this.
Yeah, the old-timey adventure. You know what? Being the old grognards that we are, the old, me being the old D&D guy, I've been playing the game since I was 8, since Basic was out. And there's a lot of good material out there. And so this was one of my favorite adventures from when I was a kid. I'm going to bring it up. We're going to throw it out there. We're going to put a little coating of spatula, some makeup on this pig and make it look pretty again.
Yeah, it's an old, it's an old broad right now, but we're gonna paint it up really nice, and we're gonna, shine it up really good for you noobs out there, for you millennials and you Gen Y or Gen Z or Gen Q or whatever it is. I don't know, man. I'm an old cat. I'm Gen X. That's what I know. So I guess it's Z now.
I don't know which. I think I'm Gen X.
Yeah, you and I are the same age bracket. So
I think Boomer ends at 68 or something like that. 64 to 68.
It's it was 64. It's like from 65 to 80, or Gen H and Generation X.
Okay, Boomer. So yeah, the old timey adventure, man. We're gonna slap a coat of paint on Grandma and drop her panties and freshen her up a little bit. She needs some love too, man. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, just because she's in the nursing home doesn't mean you ain't got to go. She doesn't like you. You got to go visit Grandma every once in a while. That's pretty much trying to say. Go give her a kiss every once in a while. She likes that too.
And even if she's not your grandma, the other ones need some smoochings too, right? I heard from some people that on the inside that there's those old retirement homes, there's a lot of sexy time going on there.
It's like the Olympics, man. When you just get a bunch of people cramped together, I imagine when the Olympics go on, and you could probably attest to this being from the Vancouver area. When you get a bunch of hot, good-looking young athletes together, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to go ahead and rut. And the same thing when you get a bunch of hot old people, or even mediocre-looking old people. They like to do their thing too. I'm not knocking it. I hope I'm ready to go when I'm in the nursing home.
Well, I think the best part about being old is when you go senile and you get some wood or whatever, you just walk around and sort of poke it in wherever you can, and who's going to say stuff to you because you don't remember.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
All right, man. The conversations we have. So, what's going on, my man? What have you been playing the last couple of weeks? How's your gaming life?
Okay. Well, here, let me tell you. This, Gary, it's interesting because every time I try to branch out, and I kind of get like a minor reputation for having ADD with gaming, which not really. I just I ask about a system and I kind of, and sometimes I'll explore it. But here's the thing, though, man. Every time I try to get out, they pulled me back in. We were doing age for a little bit, but then we decided that we were going to drop age, and I did a one shot. What was supposedly going to be a one shot of the Supers game. I said, oh, okay, you guys come over to the house. We're gonna do this for a little bit, and then everybody, we started playing it, and everybody was like, can we keep playing this? Can we keep playing this?
Back to Savage Superheroes?
Yeah, back to Savage Superheroes. In fact, I'm using Pantheon.
Son.
Yeah, man, I can't get out. Man. That's pretty much what I'm known for. But hey, here's the thing, though. I'm so excited about it. I pretty much pulled all the age stuff out of Chronica, and I totally updated it to Savage Worlds. Got a whole new Savage Worlds template in Chronica. I'm currently adding in the superpowers from a Superpowers companion into the Chronica as a template. So it's really nice to go in there and research. If somebody's got a question about a superpower, they can pull it up on their browser on their phone, click the link. I'm like, okay, this is how this is the modifier for invisibility. It makes things a little easier. So that way I don't have to pass the book around because I don't want somebody's grubby Cheeto fingers all over my crap. Yeah. They can look at the powers on their phone.
Freaking players, man, always getting their jizz fingers all over the place.
Well, I'm not trying to name no names here, but I was with one player one time, and he or she had they practically had their hand up their nose, and I'm like, hold on, man, you're gonna you done digging for gold up there before you want to handle my book,
That's what shirts are for. That's what I always say. I get in there, I go deep, and if I pull out if I get some nuggets of goodness, I just rub them on my shirt or my pant leg or something like that and let them dry up a little bit. Same for later. They're like parsley flakes,
I got. In fact, this brings up a good topic. Here's a little hint for hygiene. If you got a bug hanging, man, just go to the bathroom and farmer chuck that. Just cover your nostril and honk that sucker right in the toilet. And there you go. It's a good little game. You go on. You're not using any paper. And you're using your nostril skills and everything like that, so you're just making sure everything's clear. You do that, you're set.
I've tried that before, but it usually just ends up dangling in my beard, and then I come back to the table, and I got like a big stringer, like a big wet spool of spaghetti hanging off my stash.
Okay, yeah, you got to make sure that you got to do a mirror check before you leave, though. That's the one thing.
That's too complicated. That's 2 steps. Too many.
Yeah, just get it. All right, then shirt. All right, I agree with you. Shirt's good then.
No, that's cool, man. I have not had that kind of fun playing Supers. Well, I actually never really played much Supers before until I played with you. And I'm a big fan. I need you to, over the course of the next little while, look up the ICRPG Vigilante City stuff and sort of read that. And then we got to run through some of that so that we can catch the flavor of ICRPG. Okay. They got a neat thing going on there because in ICRPG you don't use hit points. What you get is like a stamina kind of a thing. So every time you get kapowed or biffed or, kablamoed, you sort of lose I want to say energy points kind of, you know what I mean? You get fatigue points until you're fatigued out and then you're out of the fight. But the superheroes in Vigilante City don't use hit points. They don't ever really die, which I think is kind of a neat sort of a deal, right? Your mana bar goes down, not your hit points bar. So anyways, yeah. My gaming was spectacular. Managed to take out 2 people, and it wasn't spectacular because I took out 2 people. It was just spectacular in the way it went down. We're on this little rinky-dink island with a bunch of inbreeders, and this is one of the old Adventure League's editions called, don't remember, irrelevant, moving on. And so the gist of it is they're trying to figure out why these ghosts or this ghost ship is attacking the little villages and stuff like that. So they end up on this little rinky-dink island of inbred Jeds. And they figure out that this one guy that's there, this crazy dude, is not crazy. He's just playing. And he's a scout for this mage guy, Ixis, and his band of kobolds that dress up like the undead kind of a thing. And they come ashore and they basically wipe out your little village, take all your junk, and make their way back to their little boat that they've got. On this boat, however, he's got this draconic statue. And said statue has this ability of sort of sucking your memories out of your head, kind of like sort of making you tell the truth, like you can, anything that you're thinking of. So when he's asking you questions, he can pull your thoughts out and stuff. The problem is that when it pulls out your memories, you kind of lose them all and go a little bit nutty. So long story short, they figured out that this guy was faking it, and they set up an ambush for all of these little kobolds to hop on the island, and they did little things like digging ditches and setting up fishing traps with hooks and stuff to trap them and do kinds of cool little things like that with stuff they could find on the island. So while they were laying in wait, one of my players, Arcana, was in this old ramshackle house. The house is built out of stuff that you would find washed up on the shore. And she's hiding in this place, and I got her to roll a notice check, which she failed, so she didn't hear the two goblins or the two kobolds sneaking in behind her. 2 slings to the back of the head, she's sleeping. Lights out, sayonara. So in ICRPG, you roll a D4 immediately, a D6 immediately, sorry. And that's how many rounds that you have before you basically die. She rolled a 4. Every time it comes around to her turn, she makes a constitution check. If she rolls a natural 20, she gets up with a hit point. Otherwise, it's up to the other players to come and rescue her, which is as simple as rolling up on her and making an int or a wisdom check. I believe, maybe possibly charisma. I got to look that up. But they just have to make a check against the scene difficulty. And if they succeed, she's stable. That's all there is to it. It's like you grab them by the back of the head, you look them deep in the eyes, you're like, don't die on me, man, don't die on me. And that's all there is. Make your check and they're fine, and you can go back off or possibly heal them or do your thing, right? So she's down. So here comes Daryl. Daryl killed this horse last week. I think I told you the merchant went running away. He's like, you killed my horse, you're going to pay for that. He ran back off to town. Well, that same spell, Daryl's like, I'm going to take a step back. So his character's Althea. I'm going to take a step back between these two buildings so that if my spell goes awry, none of my party will be affected by it. So he happens to be standing between the building that Arcana is in and another building, and he casts this spell and rolls a natural 1. I'm like, your spell goes off. These fireballs fly into the building to your left. They explode and collapse part of the building. And I'm like, Arcana is in this building. So this is the part where I just explained, this is the mechanics we're going to do now. She has 2 rounds left to live because you just cast this spell. What you're going to do is you're going to try and make your way into this building through this fire-laden shack that's here. And if you don't make your dexterity check, you sort of stumble and fall onto the ground trying to climb into this window. Well, he failed his check, so he doesn't get in the window. She's got 1 round left to live. I said, Daryl, if you make this check, you could go in and you could find Arcana. But if you succeed, you can jump on top of her and like protect her from her inevitable death. But you're gonna die. And if you fail, you're both going to end up in the building and both going to be dead. And he failed his roll, and that was it. Building collapsed, fire, explosions. It was glorious. So glorious, so much so that Corey, who plays this mage Thazit, he was, when it came around to his turn, he was like, as this building collapses, he realized when these 2 kobolds came out the front door that Arcana was in there. So he knows that his party member was in this building. These kobolds pop out, so she must be in there. It collapses, so he realizes that she's gone. She's like in this burning building, and there's nothing he can do. So he forgoes his turn. He's like, I'm not going to take any actions whatsoever. I fall to my knees, and I weep openly in the middle of this village, and I don't care what happens to me this round. He's like, Thazit is just absolutely devastated by this. And I was like, that is fantastic. Here's a hero coin. Right? Yeah. So that was my weekend. We had one of those moments that was just friggin' off the chart, man. It was top notch. 2 people went down. It was extremely emotional. And I had a blast. I had some good times. I'm looking forward to it.
See, when it legit happens like that, when you're able to create that sort of intense type of story and even an intimate sort of story where, you got Corey, Corey deserves an Oscar sometimes, man. Just the way that I played with that dude before. And like Corey can bang it out, man. Corey he gets immersed and he really brings a lot of characters to life and everything too. And I can just imagine how that went down, that it was really a dramatic moment.
Yeah. Did you you weren't at Con of the Cob this year when we were up in the family room playing Savage Worlds, and he's playing a mafia guy, and he was dropping F-bombs like an Italian drops meatballs at the friggin' buffet kind of a thing. and he just got louder and louder, and then Jen looks at him like, okay, sort of simmer down, but the whole place sort of stopped and looked over because he was playing this mafia dude and just dropping F-bombs like they were like hot potatoes, man. It was hilarious.
No,
good times.
No, those guys are a hoot, man. I'm glad that they're just showing them the RPG ropes and the online gaming ropes.
Yep, fantastic. All right, well, let's put a cap in the introduction section here. That's 20 minutes of us just blathering at each other like a couple of dolts. And let's move over to what's news in the RPGs. I think I'm going to keep my clothes on this time. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I think we're good. I just wanted to try that out to see if I'd be less nervous. But you know what? I think we actually got a pretty good reaction to it. However, though, I don't appreciate the peanut butter sandwich crack. You're not. No more of that, man. That's my body.
All right.
My body. Quit shaming me and my disability or inability to clean back there sometimes. Like a grizzly bear.
They make dude wipes for stuff like that. Did I ever tell you the joke about the bear and the rabbit, and they're both taking a dump in the woods? And the bear looks down at the rabbit and he says, "Hey, little buddy, do you ever have problems with shit sticking to your fur?" And the rabbit looks up at him. He's like, "Nope, never had that kind of a problem before." So the bear reaches down, picks him up, and wipes his ass with the rabbit. Okay, what's new in the RPG community? Numero uno, Creature Feature Quarterly number 6 by Jeremy Hart. $6, gonna get you this sweet-ass PDF that he puts together. Nothing fancy, nothing special, but it's a cool thing that I like. So I'm just gonna go by what's in number 5. Number 5 has probably, I want to say, 10 different creatures in it. He finds the art somewhere. I don't think he draws it himself. I think he just borrows the or pays for the art, and then he looks at this and he sort of gives you the ecology of the creature, a couple of adventure seeds, maybe what kind of loot it has, and inside of this thing. So the number 5 that I have is 56 pages. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different critters in this thing. You got CR1, CR4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you got a variety of different monsters, which is really cool. And one of the neat things that I like about it is every one of them comes with a bit of a picture. But inside the picture, he puts like a human representation. So there's like in the first picture, you see this black outline of a person standing there with a spear. And then the creature, which is like this little imp holding this harp, is called a Bellifer. And you see it, and you can see it in relative size to what a human person would look like. So you have a pretty good idea as to what it is, right? Comes with a description. It's got a little bit of lore. Tells you about the ecology, a couple of adventure seeds, and then possible loot. And then the stats are put in here for 5e. Fantastic. You know what? One of the things that I always complained about when I play this is players and monster manuals. Should not have... They know them all. You can only throw so many frickin' kobolds and goblins at your players because they know what they do. So this deal for like the $6 you're throwing at it, you get a bunch, you get 10, 13 free, or not free, but new monsters to toss at a person that they have no idea what's going to happen. And I think that's fantastic. So, but one of the best parts about this is $20 gives you PDF copies of all of the volumes. So you're going to get the first 5 and number 6 for $20. How can you go wrong? You're looking at 6 volumes, 10 critters, 60 new critters of varying CRs for $20.
That's a good deal, man.
Right?
Especially, like you said, as far as like D&D goes, you got a standard bestiary. There's going to be some creatures that everybody's just going to know about. Everybody knows what a goblin can do. Everybody knows what a bugbear can do. And it's just sort of standard boilerplate what a lot of these, creatures, especially if you've been playing a long time, like you and I have. So it's nice to get some variety, even as a GM and as a player.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And this is like well worth it. For $20, you're getting like six quarterly, 60 creatures, all done out, a little, adventure seeds, the whole 9 yards. Very sweet. I don't know if you've seen this, number 2 on the list. This isn't really RPG related, which I'm a little disappointed as I started doing my research, but I still want to talk about it a bit. When I was a kid, Commodore 64 Auto Duel. I frickin' loved it, dude. You start off with nothing. You go to the arena, you use one of their cars, like going bowling and slipping on, their shoes kind of a thing. You hop in a car, you drive around this little arena, and you got like a machine gun. And all the other guys are coming at you that are in this arena, and it's a big map, and you can only see a little portion of it, right? Like you're just a little blip on the radar, and you got to fill in the map as you go. But you can see coming in your radar, you can see other little blips. So you sort of scooch around the corner and try and tag them and blow them up with your machine gun, and then you could get out of the car and you could salvage them and take the parts, that kind of stuff, right? Depending on how good your mechanical skill was. It was super cool. But anyways, long story short, Auto Duel actually had a story to it. You start transporting things from city to city to get extra money. You build your own car, you put on flamethrowers, extra armor, but certain cars could only hold so much, right? So I'm thinking that to me was like wicked fun. I would love to do something like that. Instead of building your player character, you're actually just building the car. And, maybe your stats all stay the same. Maybe you got a driving skill, maybe, something like that kind of thing, right? So I was kind of hoping that that's what this was. But as I started looking into it, Car Wars 6th edition is, from what I've seen of it, is literally like Warhammer 40K. Put your miniatures down on the table. You get a mat with a track, and you sort of just go around and make maneuvers and do turns and shoot people in an arena kind of a thing. And there was no RPG element to it, and I was really sad, and I cried a little bit.
I remember Car Wars being a thing from back in the early 80s. Didn't play it a whole lot, but I want to say that maybe it was more RPG related from back then. And what this looks like is just more of a streamlined minis game where you're just accumulate your car minis and you just battle each other. So, yeah, I mean that's cool if you like. I'm not so much a war gamer, man, but I can see, and I guess this is a war game, but no, if you're into painting minis and if you're into doing something like this, you might as well check it out. Because I'm telling you right now, though, I mean they I guess I don't know how long the Kickstarter's been up. But the goal was 80,000, I think, and they've blown that out of the water. It's like 480,000 now. So, and I think they have 31 days left in the Kickstarter. So, you talk about this has really generated a lot of interest for some people who I imagine played some Car Wars back in the days. And Steve Jackson Games, man, they're the ones who do Munchkin and they're the ones who do GURPS. Now, here, having said that, though, I wish they kickstart some GURPS or something like that, man. You throw some more RPG stuff out there. They're not hurting for money. They make good money with the Munchkin and the Car Wars apparently. Well, I mean, throw us some RPG love, man. What's up with that? That's all I'm going to say about Steve Jackson Games.
Yep. Mine shows up in Canadian, 105,000 original goal, and they're at 600,000. That's insane. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you're going to get into Car Wars and maybe you want to try out some more gamings, this is the kind of Kickstarter that you get behind. Being that it's like blown past its stretch goal by it's almighty.
See, there's blown past its goal.
Oh man, I'll start that one over. Yeah, so Car Wars, although it's not an RPG, this one actually, if you're thinking about getting into something like this, would be the one to go for, because at 60,000 of 100,000, man, there's going to be a shit ton of stretch goals. Like there's going to be more stretch goals. This is going to be more stretched out than Debbie does.
See, if you can just imagine, if people are getting generated about some, or there's this much interest about Steve Jackson Games, man, I wish they kickstart something else. Like I GURP something else, man. I don't know. I'd like to see more RPGs, come up into play here.
I want a Savage Worlds Car Wars, man. Let's get her done.
Yeah, I think you could probably do that.
Cool.
I do know that it's interesting that you say that, though, about Savage Worlds, because I know that you can actually do a lot of skirmish stuff with that, and I'm kind of interested in doing that, but that's on the road here. I was thinking about doing some World War II, skirmish stuff, but just straight up skirmish stuff in Savage Worlds, because I get those rules. Maybe that wouldn't be too hard.
Yep, you just wrangle your ADD back in there, mister.
Yep, got to rein it back in.
This time of year is a great time of year to go buy some stuff. Peg Inc. has a sale. You can go check that out. Buy yourself some Savage Worlds goodness if you're into that kind of a thing. Shit, speaking of Peg Inc., they just came out with this thing called the Last Parsec Jump Core Guide to Interstellar Salvage. Not Savage, Salvage.
Garbage.
Special mention, November's RPG of the month is this thing called the Trilemma Adventures. So on the RPG on Reddit, they put out this deal where it gets voted up. And depending on what you nominate and what the people of the RPG forums there on Reddit vote up, it determines what it is. So this Trilemma Adventures is basically, it's like a collection of 2 to 3 page fantasy adventures with some art and stuff in that. There's a link that you can get that we'll put the link in the show notes. But I was checking this thing out on DRIVETHRU RPG. There's a PDF or compendium, something along those lines. And there's 23 ratings, man. This thing's getting 5 stars. So inside this book's like 60 pages of new material, an illustrated bestiary, an appendix of magical items, 10 solid pages of hooks, rumors, and secret lore, 6 regional gazetteers trying the adventurers' locations in ready-to-use campaign settings, full-colored regional map, GM and player versions, and it actually looks pretty sweet, man. I was kind of impressed with this thing. Whoever threw this together did their shizzle, because this sucker is getting an average rating of 5 stars. Trilemma Adventures Compendium Volume 1. Short little quips that you can throw in. 48 1 to 2 page adventure locations for fantasy role-playing games. Not too shabby.
That's awesome. And it seems like it's pretty universal, right? That you can use it. It's not like just standard, this is going to work for, just D&D. Looks like you can apply it across the board to any type of fantasy, fantasy system.
Mm-hmm. You got something on the list here that you wanted to talk about there, didn't you?
Yeah, it's funny because this sort of ties into you reviewing Legion of Liberty the other day on the on your sister podcast there, The Wild Die, and also too with this also kind of ties in with you like pirates and you're kind of fascinated, and also too you like Deadlands and everything. But this is funny too because this came up when I was just doing some searching for Savage World superheroes. I just wanted to take a look and see what was out there. So I'm out there on DriveThru RPG, and I end up just searching for Savage World superheroes. And this comes up. It's this PDF here. It's called Larger Than Life, and what it is, it's this it's done by High Rock Press, and it sort of compiles like this list of heroes and legends and this folklore from America, going all the way back to the pre-colonial era when pirates were floating around the Caribbean and everything, up to this point. And it goes all the way up, I want to say, up to World War II in this era, and it sort of just collects all these famous people, whether or not that they were real or not. And they go ahead and stat him up, man, and they got him here in Savage World. You get people like Blackbeard the Pirate. They stat him up, man. Who else do you get? You get Johnny Appleseed, and I was just getting a kick out of this. They've actually statted out like these old legends, from America. I don't know if I imagine a lot of this stuff is carried over into Canada, but I mean, this is really sort of, they talk about it's really a sort of an American sort of thing, but it's kind of funny too because they stat out Davy Crockett and they stat out like Paul Bunyan. I know you guys, Paul Bunyan, he's Northwestern too, so I mean he transcends just because they got Paul Bunyan in Canada. I'm sure they do. He was tall enough to be a hero over there too or something.
He was tall enough to be okay. Yeah, when old Paul Bunyan, he came over, man, and he's the guy that started making poutine.
Yep, that's what he was. That's that's what I was going to ask. I mean, we have Johnny Appleseed over here, and you guys have what? Poutine Jean went around and throwing
Jean Poutine.
Yeah, he went around throwing French fries all over the place.
He planted potatoes, which started the poutine revolution.
Yep. But no, this was I really got a kick out of this too because it even goes into the Western era. So if you're playing Deadlands and you want to have somebody, the whole thing about Deadlands is you got these reckoners that are just these terrible forces of nature that can that are just wreaking havoc all over the West there. Well, what if you had somebody to counteract that? What if you maybe like if you wanted to spin up the counterpoint to what's his name, Stone there in Deadlands? Maybe Sitting Bull could be like the counterpoint to him. And so they got these guys statted up kind of as superheroes. So, and also too, if you wanted to use these in your Legion of Liberty games, it actually goes back to the colonial era, where you got Peter Francisco, who was, this Continental soldier, and Washington loved this dude, man. And they said he was crazy. So that's awesome. So if you wanted to really enhance your games, these historical games, this is really a good supplement to use.
They got Paul Bunyan's entire logging gang. This is actually pretty sweet. So there's 20 archetypes ranging from Blackbeard the pirate to the man who invented the 20th century, Nikola Tesla. There's 24 full character sheets, so I'm assuming they've got 24 different people statted out. And then in and amongst that, they've also got, it says 124 biographies of other people related to each archetype, as well as famous ocean-going ships, famous outlaw gangs, Paul Bunyan's entire logging gang, and other historical trivia. That's fascinating, dude.
It really is. This really just kind of caught my eye, especially with those new games coming out or that are already out, like Legion of Liberties. If you want to just enhance these with some real life historical figures, they already have these set out. Now, granted, this is for deluxe, but it's not easy. It's not hard to convert. We all know how to do that now. You pluck charisma out, and you just change a couple things, and it's all good. They don't really add any. I don't think they add any sort of edges or hindrance or whatever. They just pretty much take what they got and they stat them all up in Savage Worlds. So you got them. And you can run with them, and also too, if you it's got Billy the Kid here, but if you want to use that same shootist archetype, that's what they called Billy the Kid. If you wanted to have Wyatt Earp, or if you wanted to have somebody of note, you can go ahead and use that archetype, stat them out, roll them out.
Just change the name on them and call him whatever, man. Crayola Kid, and away you go. Coca-Cola Kid, and he's your gun shooter. One of the cool things about Blackbeard that I just found out a little while ago, he used to do some crazy stuff, man. He would take like saltpeter and these wicks and stuff like that, and he would like put them in his beard and light them on fire so his beard smoked and stuff. Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. We've talked about this before, but I'm throwing this out for the peeps that listen to the show. If you want to get into playing pirate games, 50 Fathoms is the shit. And not only that, but you need to watch Black Sails. It's a TV show that goes for 5 seasons, start to finish. They didn't end the season. It doesn't end abruptly. It is a complete story. You've got some famous people all dealing with Blackbeard and his cronies and the people that he meets. And, man, it is good. There's lots of TNA in it, which is nice. You got some of that old school 16th century full muff beard going on downstairs. You know what I'm talking about? Did you know that in Game of Thrones there was a guy that actually made the crotch pieces for the ladies because like shaving your stuff is kind of like the hygienic thing to do in the 20th century? But way back in the dragon days, you want your dragon to have some hair on his head, and
right. So they made like the Merkins or whatever. Yeah. In fact, that I know that name. That shows what kind of person I am. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. What merkinporn.com?
No, they took that down. That domain down, man. It's now.
Wow. So yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. That's it for this section. Adventure Excursion Old-Timey Adventure Review. Isn't that Bill and Ted things?
Yep.
Going on there. All right, so we're gonna go back to Dungeon Magazine issue 37, September, October 1992 for this bad boy. I played this adventure now probably 6 or 7 times with different people, and I keep coming back to it because for me, it's got a little bit of shit that I like across the board. Now, when I was reading it for this review, I realized this time when I pulled it up that it was written by none other than Chris Perkins, way back in 1992. This is a sweet little adventure called A Wizard's Fate. So A Wizard's Fate is an AD&D adventure designed for 3 to 6 players of levels 1 to 3, about 8 levels total. The alignment of the party, this gives me a bit of a chuckle here, should be predominantly good. And a variety of races and classes is suggested. While this module can be used to introduce new players to the AD&D game, hence the reason I played it so many times, it presents an excellent challenge for experienced players as well. Damn straight it does. This adventure is set in Forgotten Realms fantasy setting, but fits easily into any campaign world. Yes, it does. And it says several monsters encountered in this adventure are detailed in MC14, the Fiend Folio. Let me give you the gist of what's happening here. So there is this dude, And this dude's name was Elzid. And Elzid was an a-hole. He was a notorious wizard and alchemist. He was a jerk. He went around and created a bunch of potions and stuff like that. Seduced merchants, like wealthy merchants' daughters with these potions. Took their money, created potions of delusions and or of delusion and elixirs of madness. And generally he was an all-around kind of an evil sort of a bit of a dude. He was a bit of a prick, to be honest with you. But as time passed, good old Elzid, he became a bit notorious. And, once he got his notoriety, his evilness kind of went away a little bit. He sort of softened a little bit. So built himself this sweet-ass black tower on top of a hill. And he lived there for many years, and he became sort of tamer, like less of a threat to civilization is what it says here. Discounting the occasional affair, he became bored with people in general. So he spent a lot of time hanging out in his research area there. But because of all of the previous evil deeds that he has done, the demons of the nine hells there decided that they were going to impart him with this imp as a familiar. So he gets Zotzpox, this evil imp, and they're living in this tower. And what's his face there? Old Elzid. He's doing a bunch of alchemical experiments and stuff. Every once in a while, he might travel to a nearby town, conceal his identity, buy some spell components and whatnot, and then shoot back to his tower and do his deal. Well, one night, good old Elzid rolls into town, and he's found himself a woman. This lady, you know how love affects everybody. It gives you that straight up old mage boner, the mage would. He falls in love with this woman from town. He's going to get married, and the imp is pissed off about it because the imp wants to do some evil stuff, man. He's an evil critter. So right. The imp basically backstabs the wizard, does some evil stuff to him, and there's this massive explosion where Elzid's tower is. That's where the players come in. You show up in this town, the tower's, this wizard's tower is blown up, and you got to go check it out. You got to go find out what's going on. So... maybe the mayor's like wants you to go check it out and see what's going on. Who knows? Maybe you just happen to be driving by when this thing blows up, right? It could be anything. There's a myriad of ways of getting into this deal. So you start off collecting your party. You head up into the hills. There's a little bit of a hill map here, and so you've got some investigation right out of the gate. The tower ruins. You can see the crumbling remains. You're on a hill and stuff like that, and there's some statues of these gargoyles hanging around that must have been at some point on the tower and whatnot. And there's an entranceway that goes in, and so you can walk around, check some things out, see some stuffs. And as you're sort of routing through all of the rocks and debris and stuff, bammo, attacked by centipedes. When's the last time you were attacked by centipedes?
It's been a minute.
Right? A couple of days?
Yeah.
So
I can't even think of the last time. Yeah, it's been a while.
Right. So you got those things right out of the gate. But when they arrive, little do the players know that Zotzpox is watching them. He's making sure that you don't do anything too fancy or any of that kind of stuff, right? So being that he's an imp, he's got the ability to polymorph his ass. So he's invisible. He's hiding. He's doing his business. You're fighting off some of these giant centipedes that are hiding around these gargoyle statues. There's a human corpse laying face down in the grass that you can go check out. I don't know. No, maybe not. Doesn't tell you who it is, but that's a thing for you guys to find out. Then there's the descending staircase that, of course, leads you into the dungeon crawl. So you go into this kind of crappy little dungeon. There's 14 rooms kind of a deal. You got the stairways down, and immediately, blammo. Guess what you got?
What?
Trap. Boom.
Uh-oh.
Yes. You walk past it, trigger the trap in the halls of mosaics, and a 10 by 10 by 10 stone block rolls in behind you. Now, you got to make a dex check to get out of the way. Maybe you get squishy pancakes. Boom. One of your players out the door immediately. Thank you very much. So far you got a little bit of mystery. You got a little bit of intrigue. You got some dead corpses. You got a blowed up tower. You got a trap. And you haven't even actually started exploring this dungeon. Next, we roll into the antechamber. Let me read you the text. A thick layer of dust has settled in this 30-foot square chamber. Lying in the middle of the floor are two dead goblins, their crude spears still clutched in their hands. At the far end of the chamber, a statue of a horned bipedal creature stands in a shallow alcove. The statue points towards you with one cruel finger, and its stony visage bears a menacing grin. The chamber has 4 doors, 2 of which hang open on their hinges. Kind of cool. So you got a couple of fresh blood laying on the ground, some goblins you can inspect. You can find out some deets off of them, and you got these 4 doors, 2 of which are open. So a couple of them lead off into treasure chambers, buried treasure. So you got some blowed up rooms. You can go in and you can make some some inspection, perception kind of rolls or whatever, notice deals and stuff like that to sort of search the rooms and see if you can find any stuff in there. So that's pretty sweet. Sure enough, you got some things that you can find. We're not going to go into some serious details, but that's pretty sweet. So immediately you're into some treasure. You're into a little bit more mystery. This bad boy's got a random discovery table. So these are little, bits of information that you can pull out of it. And you got a statue that you can do some things with. It's got like an illusion that's on it. When you touch it, it springs to life and says some evil, scary stuff that you can use to sort of set the tone, freak your players out. And this is all within the first 2 pages, man. You've already got a good collection of things or elements.
Yeah, encounters.
Right? Yeah, the elements, the tone and everything is like immediately set with this thing. Traps, intrigue, dead bodies to look at. As you're filling up your repertoire, your little sketchbook with notes and stuff like that, you crack open a few doors, you sort of peek around, you walk through this. There's is this a secret door? I think this is a secret door that leads into number 9, the summoning room. So if you find this thing, oh no, maybe this one's got a key. That's what it is. I think you need a key to get in here or something like that. Takes you into the summoning room. And this is where you realize that this guy might have been into some infernal stuff. Summoned him some demons or something along those lines, which is kind of cool, right? You got some demon action going on there. 10 is the old bugbear bones. So the door to this room is locked, but there is a key that you can find to get into it. And then, there's some stuff that you find in here, some things that you got to do. Oh, the woman in the chair. So there's a woman in a chair here with 2 bugbear skeletons that you get to duke out. But I don't want to give too much away. I just want to sort of, lay the groundwork a little bit. And this is where it gets really cool. There's the pro mic smashings, right? As you progress through the dungeon, you slowly build up more and more information to sort of figure out what happened to this wizard. And it's really well put together. Now, as you come to the end of this dungeon, you've got these doors, these locked doors, and these doors have different shaped keys. So there's like a triangle, a circle, and a square kind of a thing, right? Well, if you don't have the right key for the right door, things blow up, explosions happen. So it can be quite devastating for you to not find the proper materials. And these little keys are scattered throughout the dungeon. You got to find them and pick them up. One says it's trapezoidal, the other is circular, and the 4th one is a lozenge-shaped deal. You got a secret room with what is in number 12? Number 12 is the Chamber of Webs. Got some spiders. They got some equipment in there. There's lots of equipment to be had. There's a library in here, and there's a secret door. So you got some secret door action. You got these 3 doors to get you into the main part, and it all comes to a phenomenal ending with Elzid's treasury. Once you find the 3 keys, boom, 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 in through the doors. And this is the cool part. So beyond the last portal lies a circular chamber, 30 feet in diameter. In the center of the room float 5 identical metal spheres, each 2 feet in diameter. The balls hover 4 feet above the floor and have seams along their equators. Painted on the chamber's walls are 3 warrior figures, a human clutching a spear, a dwarf wielding an axe, and an elf brandishing a sword. Runes are painted above each figure. So, guess where you be? Elzid's treasury room. Huh? You got some treasure, you got some venomous creatures, you got some demons, you got some special keys you got to find, you got secret doors, you got mystery, intrigue, the wizard's fate. This is a frickin' all-around fantastic, action-packed, fun-filled adventure. I had so much fun running this that I did it 3 or 4 more times. Actually, I've probably run this 5 times. What do you think of that action, Uncle Jay?
No, I get a kick out of it because I was sitting there reading this before because I like to do my research when I come on the show. What really appealed to me too is you're absolutely right. Everywhere you go in this adventure, there's some sort of encounter. You're not left hanging around. You're sort of It's not a super long one either, but I can imagine. How long would you say this in your experience? How long have you run this? Have you run this in one day?
Oh yeah. This is a 2 to 3 hours sort of one shot kind of a deal.
Yeah. You can tell that too. And what's amazing about it too is how pretty the artwork was back in the Dungeon magazines. Even it's all black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the maps are pretty. In fact, it would be nice to like grab some of those images and show everybody I mean, would you show the maps back then, or what would you do, or just you'd have them drawn out?
Yeah,
or whatever.
Just draw them out in some paper. Even back in the day, we still had. We would just use graph paper. Is actually what we would do back before we had cool like reprintable maps. Way back in the day.
Yep. No, that's what we did too. Was we wore the hell out of some graph paper. We had graph paper and we had rulers because to draw our little maps, even though they were like superhero layers and stuff instead of like dungeons. But same principle though, man. It was just we were doing the same stuff only with Marvel. And I don't know if it was Dungeon Magazine, but there was it might have been because it was all TSR stuff and they were sort of the publication for TSR. I want to say that they also had some other stuff in there too, that because we came across some Marvel superhero adventures in one magazine back in the day. So yeah, you really, and what's interesting too about this adventure, going back to this kind of dovetailing back here, the fact that you have to go collect. I mean, there's an event. I mean, there's a mystery that's going on, and you got to go investigate it. And also too, you go ahead and you got to go and get your 3 keys, and then you got to go to the treasury, and then boom. I kind of read how it ended, and if anybody's interested, I don't want to go ahead and spoil that. But let me ask you this though: the big kicker. In fact, I imagine why you're bringing this up. Is this something you're going to do in ICRPG?
This one here, I don't know if I would throw this one in here. I mean, I would like to, because it has the thing that I loved about it. The reason that I wanted to bring it up is because there's a lot of good stuff that that people, or everybody that's into 5e might not have access to this kind of stuff from way back in the day. So if you come across something like this and you're sort of, I explain it to the peeps. Old-timey adventure review. This would be like in the back of your head. Hey, here's a quick little one-shot kind of a thing for a night you can throw into any fantasy setting that you're playing, and you're off to the races. This kind of a deal is easily upgradable to 5th edition, easily swappable into ICRPG, and hell, man, you could even just throw this into Savage Worlds, because really the story is the main point, the main selling point, and you just got to throw in whatever kind of critters you want to have your guys fight. Maybe this dungeon's overridden with goblins. Maybe they came in and did it. The whole time you're in here, this Zotpox, this invisible imp with his poisonous tail, is trying to sting you and screw you up. So while you're fighting spiders in this webbed chamber, he comes in behind you and is like trying to stick you with his spear, with his little tail and stuff, and take you out. So you get all messed up by that. But the rewards are off the hook, man. Like, there's some really good stuff in here for low-level adventures. And then when it's all said and done, man, you find everything. You get the treasury and stuff. Like, you got 5 spheres full of stuff that you can actually get access to. And I believe one of them, which I think is really cool, is an Iron Cobra. The Iron Cobra activates the moment the lid is opened. So the command word for deactivating the Cobra is Thawsome. Once deactivated, the Cobra can be reactivated with the word Thysis. So this is basically like a little automated Iron Cobra that you could put in your pocket, throw it into a room, say the command word, and this thing starts attacking people. Yeah?
That's pretty sweet.
Right?
You could, and here's the thing. When we're sitting here talking about this could easily work inside Beast and Barbarians inside of Savage Worlds. A low fantasy vibe. Anybody who's fooling around with magic is supposed to be an evil bastard anyway. So you could absolutely do this in Savage Worlds. Like I see this like Beast and Barbarians, and that's kind of like your treasure kind of hunting. That's kind of the appeal to it. Is you go out and you ward off kill some evil sorcerer, and then you get a bunch of loot, and then you spend it all on whores and booze, and then you got to go do it again.
You get yourself this Iron Cobra, and that's like a party favor. It's like a party trick. You're like, hey, watch old Hawk Tuck. He's going to hop in his little tent there in his sleeping bag. He rolls into his sleeping bag, and all of a sudden you start screaming the magic words to activate the Iron Cobra. And, good old Hawk Tuck there shits his pants as he tries to clamber out of his sleeping bag because he's getting attacked by your little joke of an Iron Cobra trick that you're pulling on him.
Now, here's the thing. I'm not as versed in like old school D&D like stat blocks as I am. I mean, it looks like AL, N, AC. I don't MV. I imagine that. It's Greek to me. But The one thing that jumped out at me when we're looking at the stat block here for this Iron Cobra is I see SA poison. I'd imagine that stands for special ability poison.
Mm-hmm. Sure does.
And poison's nasty, man. If you have anything, if you're not prepared for poison, it's a bad day.
Yep, this sucker is Type F, save it -2. This is a fantastic adventure, man. A Wizard's Fate by Christopher Perkins. It has a little bit of everything. Mystery, intrigue, exploration, traps, puzzles, sweet loot. You're getting attacked by all sorts of critters, including an invisible imp that tries to F with your sizzle while you're like exploring the dungeon and stuff. So, yeah, top notch, man. That's it for the first old-timey adventure excursion. You'll find that, I'll put a link in the show notes, but this one for a little one-shot adventure for a night of fun you can't beat it, man. Issue number 37, nice. September, October 1922, Dungeon Magazine. That's this. That's the feature. That's the review. Done. Moving on. What's next?
Man, I think you know what's next.
Mm-hmm. I know.
You know what you're good at. It's a hot topic, man. It's a hot topic.
Nope, we're doing community questions.
Oh yeah. This actually is shaping up to be one of my favorite parts that we do here.
All right. You ready for this action?
Yeah, man, I am so ready. I need to be twins to be more ready for this.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either.
Lowered expectations.
Community questions. I gotta shrink down some of my windows here. I got quite a few things open up here. Number 1, my players almost have their hands on infinite knowledge, the tomb of all knowing. This guy writes in and says, this is a concept one of my players created before the campaign even started. I'm not fully sure what it is, but it certainly insinuates that any and all knowledge is available inside, and that's sort of how I view it. I don't know if I mentioned the tomb in-game or the players asked about it, but now they found themselves seeking it to solve their problems, aka defend the city from war, stop the Tyrant King. They are a session away from obtaining the tomb, and I'm struggling to know what to do with it. If I had a player roll wisdom save to keep from going mad at the sight of a page, I thought maybe there's like a minimum intelligence or wisdom score that you must have to even look at it, but I'm not sure if that's enough. Should they be able to read it? Are there consequences for looking at it? Or do you have to have a specific question in order to retain the information? What should I do?
I think he's answered all of his questions himself. All of those sound like pretty decent ideas. But what I would end up doing, though, is the first thing that I would do in this situation is my man is worried about whether or not once they get the tome, what they're going to do with it. He hasn't said anything about how difficult that journey ought to be. That's the thing. He's saying that they're one session away from getting that. I mean, what do they have to do? Just knock on some, an old lady's house, say, hey, you got that book here, lady?
Oh, yes. I keep it right here in me purse.
Right. Nah, I mean, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put a dragon in front of them. Or not so a dragon in the sense that you're going to give them some sort of high level challenge to get through the book. If it's that important where it's going to solve all the problems, it shouldn't be over in some old lady's house. It should be in a cave somewhere, guarded by some nasty creature. And then if they get past that, then those ideas, I do like the fact that they should only be able to ask it like one question.
Yeah, maybe like one per day. Limited magic kind of a thing would be pretty sweet. You can knock that on top of that.
Yep. Once per day, you get to ask it once per day, one question per day, and that's about it. And also, too, if you even try to ask it a second question, man, you got to roll for damage.
Yeah, I think that this is how I would roll with this thing. I'm going to give this to them, but there's going to be some serious caveats. Number 1, you make a roll. If you fail, you're like your brain gets all tangled up in a web and a weave, and you become a bit of a nugget for a couple hours, kind of a thing, until your brain gets a chance to reset itself, or somebody punches you in the face a few times and brings you to your senses. It's also, like you said, going to be not only behind a powerful creature, but a powerful lock of some kind. Maybe this is where you want to throw in like a sweet puzzle to access it. This is a valued and coveted item. But I'm going to say that don't change what you're going to let your players do. The tomb of all knowledge or all knowing. Let them ask the questions and give them the answers. But let there be a cost. Maybe they got to sacrifice some gold. Maybe they got to break a magical weapon or something like that to activate its power, kind of a thing, right? There's got to be a price to answer for asking the question that they need to determine whether or not they're going to be willing to pay in order for them to access the information, but then just give them the information. Saves you as a dungeon master looking like an a-hole for telling them that you're going to give them the book of all knowing, and then has extra caveats on it where it could be damaging. You know what? I would even throw in a chance that you lose a percent, or there's a percentile chance, maybe 5%, that you lose a point of intelligence looking at this book or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Or here's the thing. You know, it's funny, too, you said that maybe it cost some gold or whatever. Like, maybe it cost a finger to ask it a question, you know?
Wow, you got to go with body parts, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Maybe the book will eat your finger. You know
what's even better?
Question. Wow.
Dude, what about if it needed the fingers of innocent children?
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you got to, I mean, maybe the book itself is evil, too. You know, maybe the book is more evil than anything that they can possibly imagine. I mean, that's what you got to go around with. Yeah, that's what it's talking about. Like, I want to answer your question. You must feed me a baby. You know, baby back ribs.
That would be freaking top notch. There's got to be a steep price for getting this information. And then perhaps when you screw up, maybe it gives you the wrong information. That critical fail is going to cost you some intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty sweet. So, yeah, nice. Good answer, Jake. Good answer.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Insert applause here. What's next?
All right, so let's take a look at this one here. All right, so this one's about spellcrafting here. They're asking the game masters. I have a player who wants to spellcraft, basically either buff up spells or create new ones. Is there any system out there for it or any homebrew for 5e? All right, so what do you think there, Gary? You going to let somebody craft some spells?
Hell yeah, I am. Damn Skippy. There's things to note. What I would do in this situation is I would look at what kind of damage first level spells do. I know that they kind of vary. Like if you're going to do like light, like a light cantrip might be a D10 because you're casting it with a priest. Maybe you're doing the warlock spell that does a D12. I can't remember what it's called. It's been a while since I played some 5e. But you don't need a system for doing this kind of thing. Just let your players discuss what it is that you're trying to get out of this spell. And you just write it down. Maybe he's got to go out and, again, he's got to sacrifice some gold. He's got to buy some herbs. He's got to get some paper, some parchment, some magic quills kind of a thing. Maybe he needs the ink from an albino octopus or something like that in order to enchant whatever it is he's doing. Depending on the spell that he's trying to create, I would make him have maybe at least one unique item in order to cast it. If you're into that kind of stuff, it depends sort of how detailed you want to get into your campaign. If not, just give it to them. You know, spellcrafting not spellcrafting, but spellcasting inside of 5th edition is kind of the shit. It's kind of like you're only limited to your so many spells depending on what level you are. And when those spells run out, you kind of take it in the butt, man. ICRPG has a fantastic system. You literally just say what it is you want to craft. You make a roll. If you succeed, that spell happens. And there's no mana, there's no spell slots, there's none of that. You just get what's called spell burn. So every time you flip the dice up 1 until you get to a D4, when you hit your D4, you make a wisdom check if you're a priest, an intelligence check if you're a mage. If you succeed, you just go right back to flipping that down to a 1 and cast. You keep casting. You really feel powerful as a mage inside of ICRPG, and I really like that. So I would bring that idea into my 5e and just say whatever spell they want to cast, depending on their level, maybe say they're a D8 level. So at level 1, they can cast a 1D8 spell. Level 2, it's 2D8. 3d8 as they progress, and it is what it is. Maybe they need some special something or other to cast it. But as far as creating a special system, I don't think I would go that far anymore. That just becomes a bit of monotonous gameplay, I think. A little bit of tedium, so to speak.
No, and that's the thing, too, that I've realized, like, the more that you get into this, I think on the onset, people want to go ahead and try to reinvent the wheel a lot of times with a lot of things, and create a new mechanic for it. But when you start realizing that you don't really need that sort of thing, like if you're playing 5e, all you really need to do is, I mean, sure, there's a ton of spells in 5e, but if you really want something, you can change the name of it. You know, it doesn't have to be Cone of Cold. It doesn't have to be Burning Hands. It can be, it could be Acid Hands, or, you can change. Nothing's stopping you from changing the trappings in 5e. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. But I think a lot of people get in that mindset too, that what's written in the book, is hard and fast. It's set in stone, and they can't break away from it. And here's me coming from superhero games, where a lot of times too, you're just given base powers. You're just given sort of like, okay, here's a blast power. It's up to you to call it what you want to call it. If it wants to be acid, or or poop, or whatever, man, you can, that's what it's going to be. It's up to you. You get to choose what it's called. And maybe from that mindset that I've always been flexible in that sense. That's easy shit to me, man. That doesn't, changing, or spell or whatever. That's easy stuff. But I know some people that have just played this game for, a long time that just can't break that mold. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. It's one of the biggest things about 5th edition that I find is people don't want to step outside of the book. They want to sort of follow it word for word. And because it's sort of the biggest system and the most popular system, the one that everybody plays, a lot of times it's not about the spell. It's not about the spell mechanics. It's about some asshole trying to tell you that he knows how the rules of the book are better than you. And that's not the kind of thing you want to bring into your game. So I think that's a lot of the sort of the reasons why you'll find, you get rules lawyers inside of Dungeons & Dragons, pretty much any game. Let's not just say D&D, across the board, role-playing games. But, man, it's all about the flavor and having fun at this stage. It's about the story. And if your story is made a lot cooler by this guy, plucking a pubic hair and casting ash splash so that he shoots diarrhea out of his butthole, let him have at it, man. D8 damage, maybe a bit of blind, maybe a bit of pink eye, something like that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, he's got some sort of infection. Maybe he's going to take damage over time. Maybe he's got to, if you're doing Savage Worlds, that's you can add a modifier to that. You can throw the confusion modifier because you got poop in your face. It's going to smell bad. You can trap it that way. And also you can have lingering fatigue where that's going to, cause fatigue after a while because the poop is just so terrible. It's making you gag. Mm-hmm. It's not hard.
Whatever you do, be consistent. Every time he casts a spell, it has the same effects. And unless he does something different to the actual casting of the spell, don't make it cast confusion one time and the next not, because then you just start getting into debates with your players over what the spell does, the effects of it, that kind of a thing. Write it down, let them have it, and, just have fun with it, man.
Yeah. It's not rocket science, man.
Another high five for Uncle Jay.
Thanks, man. Back at you.
You ready for question number 3? Here we go. Running a solo adventure for a bard, need advice. I am a relatively new DM, and I'm running a group through the Rosloff Keep campaign from Art of the Genre. It's been going well, but I've had one player that has been away from the table for the past few sessions due to real-life commitments. This has led them to fall behind in levels compared to the other players, and I don't want to just throw levels at them, as the player and I want the levels to feel quote-unquote earned. I'd like to run a solo session for that player before our next game so they can catch up in levels to the rest of the players. My question is twofold. Do you have any advice on how to run a solo adventure and how that is different from running a group? And the second part is, the player character is a bard. What are some scenarios or conflicts that I can put them in that they can resolve through their bardic skills rather than combat? The player loves coming up with songs and music for whatever situation they find themselves in. Thank you for your help. What do you got, Uncle Jay?
All right, man. So I'm going to preface this by saying, have you ever had a bard at one of your campaigns?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Now, how did you feel about having that bard in your campaign? Did that person play him well or whatever? Because I know bard is sort of like a sticky wicket with like a lot of people.
You can get good bards and you can get bad bards. Most bad bards just want to cast vicious mockery and play their little things. But I've actually had this one guy that played a bard that would invent songs and stuff like that. So every time he showed up, we would start the campaign off with him singing a poem about the adventures that we had the previous time. And that was actually really cool.
See, all right, so yeah, that guy knows how to bard. And you know what? Here's the thing, too. What you got to do, if you're going to make a solo adventure for a bard, like maybe one little, here's what I would do. if you're playing a bard, man, all a bard wants to do is bone. Let's be real. A bard, whoever it is, bards are randy little bastards, man. So they're what you want to do if you want to have a solo adventure for your bard, you got to make a romantic epic for your bard. And I'm telling you because you got to throw like either if the person is a female bard or if it's a male bard, you got to have like a romantic sort of adventure. Where like the damsel in distress sort of thing, or maybe the dude's a prince or whatever. You got to do some sort of, unrequited love, because that's what a bard's all about to me. Because a bard is motivated by romance and beauty and everything too. So that's how I would play this. Now, here's the thing. I also preface it by saying this caveat too. Romance, I think, works in RPG, but if you want to role play, knocking boots, I'm out. I'm out, man. You go. I'm not acting out porn. You go like go to the bathroom, take your iPad, go watch Pornhub. We'll come back. Once you get it all out of your system. I'm not doing that shit at the table. Romance is fine. But we're not doing that though. But having said that though, I think you could have a lot of fun with like a romantic sort of themed solo adventure for your bard, because it's just you and that person. Nobody's going to sit there and laugh at you. Nobody's going to, that's gay, blah blah blah. You do what you do. You make that fun for the person.
Very cool. That's a hell of a good idea. How far have you ever gone with romantic deals at the table? Has there been some touchy-feely? Little one-on-one?
In Deadlands, and you know what I'm talking about. Did you ever play Coffin Rock in Deadlands?
Not Coffin Rock, no.
Okay, well, Coffin Rock, there's like some, it's pretty much like a sandbox adventure that kind of happens in this town. Like a lot of this weird shit kind of goes on. Had some players go over to the saloon, and I had these, saloon girls that were kind of like hitting on the one guy who was kind of a drunk. And, and I was over at my friend's house and we were doing this, and the girl was like, come on, honey, let's go upstairs. I'm going to show you a good time. And like, doing this stuff. And my buddy was like getting into it. Okay, girl, we're going to come up upstairs. And like, all right, let's open the door. And then, all right. And then cut. That's about as far as it goes, man. As soon as the door closes, it's done. I'm like, I'll leave that to your imagination.
Wow. Why you gotta be such a wimp? There should have been
I'm a tease, man.
Should have been some hand holding, right? Take your shirt off, rub your nipples a little bit.
Yeah. Then again too, man, when the baby's not around, I think I might do that, just to show what kind of a good GM I am. But I think he's got like little kids or something. They don't need to be their first encounter into romance shouldn't be, a 46-year-old fat guy like rubbing, oil on his chest.
I think that sets a straight good bar for him. Right?
Maybe it does. I don't know, man. Things may be different when they get older. I don't know.
Dude, I have to agree with you 100%. Not that this is anything that has to do with this guy's question, but man, you want to play sexy time at the table, go do it somewhere else. This is not what this is about. I am not going to look lovingly into another guy's eye and have descriptive sex with him at the table in front of other dudes.
Right.
Not even other ladies. I'm sorry. I'm pulling the pin on this one.
Right, and that's the thing too, because I actually play with a lot of females. Like my wife plays in one of the in the 5e game that we're getting ready to wrap up, and I play with my sister in one of the home games too. And I play with. Actually, I have a pretty good ratio of female players, but also too, like I'm not like I said, I play with my sister, man. I'm not trying to role play. Okay, here's what's going on, but anyway, we're getting totally off track. But as far as like a solo adventure goes for a bard, romance, social sort of conflicts, that's what you do. And you want to do like some skill challenges. That's what this bard's all going to be all about. A bard is a skill monkey, is like half skill monkey, half healer,
I would say, tip easy stuff right off the top of my head. Throw him in a contest. There's a bardic contest where he's got to get up and he's got to perform in maybe a myriad of skills. Like he's got to play his instrument, he's got to sing a song, and he's got to create his own original artwork. And that's part of this group or part of this little challenge that he's got to do. This performance contest or competition that he's at this local bar. Maybe while he's there, he's got the other players messing with him. They're doing things like putting gum in his flute, or that kind of stuff. So he's got to figure out who's trying to sabotage him. That could be one way to go. Or you could just straight up have him hire some mercenaries and go out and whack some goblins, kind of a thing. That's always an option. Maybe throw him. Maybe he gets captured and he gets put on the front of like a goblin war machine. and they Mad Max style it in their, on the way to town. And basically they're like, you got to play this guitar all the way in. And we got to get some kick-ass rock music going on while we go attack the goblins.
So he's sitting there playing his lute and flames are going out of it. Yep. No, that's actually a good idea. Like the old dude gets captured by a bunch of goblins and he's forced to be like their hype guy, by playing his lute. No, that's awesome. And then he's got to figure out a way to get out of there. That's actually that's a really good ass idea. You get the high five on this round, man.
Thanks, pal. I appreciate that. Well, there was one other thing I was going to say. There is some old school solo adventures, not for bards, but there is, back in the day, the old Dungeons and Dragons came out with solo adventures for fighters, clerics, thieves, and you can look those up. You can look up solo adventures, but I think for the bard, you would probably pick the thief one. He's got to do a little bit of stealthy stuff, a little bit of conniving, a little bit of sneaking his way into a house and stealing a thing or an item or something along those lines. Get himself some hired help. Maybe he uses his bard skill to convince a better thief, and then he plays that thief, goes off and steals some things. There's lots of ideas that you can do for that, but don't send him solo adventuring. I would say always make sure that he takes other people's with him, so that when combat happens, he doesn't get mushed and killed. Because that kind of sucks.
That's the thing too. Like as far as solo adventures go, I don't. If you're just playing with one other person. Give them, I don't see the harm in giving somebody a GM NPC in that case, or the GM or a GMPC actually kind of plays or whatever, kind of along him. Like you said, like hired help. He doesn't have to be like, that guy doesn't have to be like 12th level, off the charts, but that guy can be the same level as him. Just maybe, has a little bit, his armor's, a little bit higher.
Yeah, for sure. And even if he was a DM controlled player, it's perfectly fine to go that route. There's a lot of times that I will bring or insist that my characters, like Brother Cleef or something like that, is going to come into the dungeon with you. There's, in the one that I played, I had Cleef come down. And so the best part is Cleef, he was not the hype guy, but he was the disc guy. So if you cast a spell or something like that, or swung your staff and missed, Cleef would look at you. He's like, I almost feel like I need to get out of here. I don't feel like I'm protected by, you couldn't hit the broadside of a bard with, and he was always making these weird little comments and stuff. Is that the most powerful spell you have there? Jesus, I've flushed things more powerful than that. So those guys are kind of fun to bring along too. Cool. Yep. Let's put a pin in that question and shoot over to number 4.
Okay. Number 4. What are the favorite ways to run the first session? Session 1 is really a make or break for me. If the players aren't interested or immersed quickly, the GM might never get them into the game. Suppose there are 2 questions here. What do you think needs to be accomplished in the first session? For example, how much of the world needs to be introduced? Do the PCs need to be in combat quickly as possible for the players to catch attention? How do you, in the second part is how do you usually like to run the first session? Again, combat, meeting in a tavern. Do the PCs already know each other? How do you introduce each other? How do you introduce the first adventure hook? Thanks for all the response. Hope this gets some interesting discussions going. How do you run a first session?
Okay. If you have never listened to this podcast before, check out a podcast called Pretend Wizards and just listen to the first couple episodes. The interesting part about Pretend Wizards, now I'm going from memory and it's been a couple of years since I heard it, but I believe this guy's a fantastic game master, for one thing. What he did was he started off in a city. You don't need to go any bigger than that. The name of your city, it's got a couple of buildings, it's got some people that live there, it's got some stuff. You don't have to explain the entirety of it, but then you just start with one of your players. And, you start with player A. You're like, hey, player A, what is it you're going to do? And player A is like, I'm at my house, I'm doing this thing. Like you hear a knock at the door, and as you open the door, there's a notice on the door that says, this guy is looking for adventurers to come and solve quests for him. So your group, are you picking pubic hairs off your mic again? Damn.
No, man. No, it's all fuzzy cat hair.
So the gist of it is this guy, you work for a like a detective company kind of a thing, right? You're solving problems. And it's really neat how it starts off. Everybody sort of got their own place. He's discussing with them. There's this one big ogre fighter kind of person that has like a little flowery teapot house that you find out later on, which is pretty cool. And you just kind of go around and have a little moment with each one of your players. Investment doesn't happen through combat. Investment happens through the story and what you create in the game. I'll tell you what I mean by that is if you give the players the ability to create an item in game like a lumber mill or a brothel or something along those lines where they're running a business, they're starting a tavern, they have some kind of commitment inside the world. Maybe the guys at tavern keep looking for adventure or something like that. Or this is what they aspire to. That's a good way to get players interested into the game because now they're trying to, they got a goal in mind when it's all said and done. But this Pretend Wizards guy rounded up his 4 players. They all went into the middle of town at 12 o'clock or something like that. This guy was supposed to open this magic house that's like all the entryways were blocked off and you had to figure out how to get in. Every player discussed how they were going to get in and it was actually pretty interesting. It was a pretty neat way to start off your the first session. Individual, deal with each one, get them involved a little bit, give them a thing to look forward to, talk with them about their interests, what it is they're doing, and bring them together as a group. But session 1 should always be bringing your players together so that they actually care about who it is they're gaming with.
Thanks, buddy. No, that's a very good answer there, Gary.
It's okay. It's nothing spectacular.
Now give yourself a little credit. Well, here's the thing too. There's always the expectation that there's going to be that there should be a session 0 that's going on. And I think that's one thing that, the one thing that you got to make sure that you do have is so that it's imperative that you and your players are on the same page. If you're not on the same page, I'm like, why are you even here? Because, this person's wanting to do A, and you're talking about B, then what's the point? And I really, so I think with a session 0, you need to establish like some sort of buy-in. Like you need to figure out a reason for your player to be there. And then after session 1, after that's all been established, I usually like to drop like session 1. I usually like to have, sort of like the intro. If we're talking about a movie, it's usually like, if I lay it out, it's sort of like, seeing like the Guardians of the Galaxy, there's usually like a lineup scene. I always like to pretend it like that. Okay, so all right, here's the culprits, blah, blah, blah. You got player A, I say player, like you said, player A, what are you doing here? Usually when I start off, I usually like run criminals and stuff like that, where it's usually bad guys that are formed together that, usually have to, do something good. So they're usually criminals and they're usually locked up anyway. That's how I run it, stuff like that. So they're, that's how they usually get together. But if you're doing a fantasy though, I mean, yeah, there's a quest board and everybody's sort of like, yeah, we're looking for adventures, meet over here at, Willie's Tavern, get you a bottle, get you some grog and come on over here. I don't see anything wrong with that because it's not really important how you get people together. It's always about the journey that's really going to matter. Yeah. And also too, you can also go around collectively and say, hey, how do you guys know each other? Or do you guys know each other? Do you want to do that? And it's usually just that simple. If people want to go from there, then that's fine too.
Yep. Do a thing to solidify players' characters. Yes, characters' involvement with one another. They need to, you need to have a reason to save Jimmy from getting his face smashed in by the ogre when it comes out. Because if you don't really know the guy and he's got like a real nice fancy sword or something like that, you're just going to be like, okay, I'll just let the ogre smash him and then I'll just take the sword when he's smashed and dead on the ground. Kind of like you got to have a reason to care about your party kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it too. I mean, maybe, you got to, and that's where you got to have to like shine as a GM and you kind of have to make NPCs, or you kind of have to give somebody a reason to care about. Like, I don't know, you have a little kid come in the tavern like, yeah, my kitten got lost up a tree, and they're like, oh, it's a little kitten that got lost up a tree, and then it turns out it's not really like a kitten, it's like a displacer beast that's sitting there hissing at people,
Yeah, that tree is way outside of town, and this kid's like
a little tiefling kid.
Right? He's what do you call the ones that can morph? Man, I don't know. I'm in a brain fart on this one, but yeah, it turns out he's some kind of like freaking demon or some, drags you out and eats you, feeds you to the tree.
Yeah, that's what you do. Is you usually bait somebody in with a kid or an animal. That's usually how I do it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the old meeting in a tavern, man. It's tried and true, buddy. It's tried and true.
And it really gives, especially if you're playing Savage Worlds, that's a perfect that's a perfect location for you to throw out an interlude. You guys have met in a tavern, everybody just kind of like congregating there for the first time. You throw down some cards, all right? You get everybody's talking about where you were before you decided to meet. Okay, I dropped the spades on you. You're going to tell us about like how hard it was to get here from where you saw the bulletin. I threw a heart. You're going to tell me about something cool that you saw on the way here. That's easy shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a really good one, man. The interlude is fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your player. That's sort of what I was getting at with my first little gist there. Tell me what it is you're doing in the world. So let's move right on to number 6. And I'm going to read this little bad boy to you. One player feels singled out, bullied by another. Advice needed. Here we go. Throwaway account because my friends are aware of my main. Posting from mobile, apologies. That's how he starts it off. One of the groups I'm a part of is made up of me, male 29, and 3 close friends, Jane, female 35, Lynn, female 29, and Anna, female 24. Dude's playing with 3 ladies?
Yeah, it happens.
We meet once a week with Jane and I altering as GM. We're all rather new to TTRPGs. I got into them at the beginning of the year. I think he spelt that wrong. I got into them. Yeah. You got it in him? What?
Right. No, he phrased that very weird. So, yeah.
I got into them at the beginning of the year, and we started playing together at the end of summer. This almost sounds like a sexy. I'll read in my sexy voice.
I think I grabbed this from the Penthouse freaking subreddit.
Almost right from the start, Lynn had issues with the way Anna treats her at the table. She's only spoken to me about it at this point, saying that Anna yells at her and jumps down her throat whenever Lynn makes a mistake, and in general is mean to her in out of character. She also said that Jane has noticed it, but doesn't know what to do about it. Okay, so you get the gist of it. You got a dude who's the game master hanging out with 3 ladies. I'm super jealous already, but this is my advice, buddy. You want to throw down like a table or a bowl of like hot olive oil and accidentally maybe spill it on one of them and then blame the other one. And so that, they start like a little bit of an oil fight kind of a thing and they end up all getting lathered up. And when the fight breaks out, make sure you got a bowl of hot popcorn kicking around and just let the ladies go at it, tear their clothes to shreds. Sorry, this really turned into penthouse.
No, but the thing about it is, what we got to realize here is the most important thing about this, about what he talked about, is the man needs to pull out his phone and record it, the oil wrestling as it's happening, and then send the video to murderhoboshow.gmail.com.
And make sure you get the email address right there.
Right, and then you send that over. Murderhoboshow.gmail.com. No, but seriously though, man. You got to nip any personal problems in the bud. I cannot tell you enough. As soon as they arise, man, I don't care. You're GMing, and if you got a co-GM, you got somebody that you're trading off with. GM's got to nip problems in the bud as soon as they happen. You got to lay it on the law, man. I mean, that's the thing. Here's the thing. Like me as a person, I'm one of the. I like to think that I'm a pretty nice guy. But you can't let somebody run over you, man, when you're GMing. Otherwise, they're going to keep doing that stuff to you, and the problems are going to keep happening. If somebody snips at somebody instantly, hey, let's play the game. Let's play the game. Let's if there's a personal problem, let's talk about what's going on. Let's move past this. We're here to play a game.
Right. I think that maybe you could also maybe take Anna aside and say, Anna, listen, I know that you're not as pretty as Lynn. And that she's smarter than you, and you're taking out your aggressions because you don't feel like you're on par with her socially, kind of a thing. Maybe you could get some psychiatric help, or maybe you need a hot oil massage because I got some hot oil right here. We're really not giving any good advice with this question, I don't think. No,
not really. I mean, it's one dude playing with 3 females, man. And that's. I mean, that was the that was the dream,
right?
Back in the day.
Man, you want to set up some cameras, a little subterfuge style, and you need to like pull your junk out and roll your dice with your elephant trunk.
This is what happens, man, when you decide to listen. You know, we try to answer. Yeah, like these people are all millennials, man. It's like we're in our 40s, man. We're knocking on 50's door. This is how we solve stuff.
Right? With our wieners. And
right,
dice.
pretty much. Yep. That's the name of this podcast, Wieners and Dice.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, yeah, never mind this question. We're done with that, too. Sorry, we can't be more help.
No, it was funny.
Straight up adult conversation, man. You know?
Yep.
That's all I could say.
Yep.
And worst
That's all
case
you need.
scenario, start a fight and have them duke it out and send me the video.
Yep. Everybody wins then.
Moving on. Show topic. Section number 6 coming up. Railroading. Let's get her done. We're an hour and 45 minutes into this bitch already. And I could probably cut some of that stuff out, but we're going to do this anyway. So, Jay, do you like trains?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the sound of hot steam whistles and steel on steel grating and grinding like two robots during sexy time?
Oh, yeah.
Do you like the smell of burning coal and rawhide leather seats? How about the clickety-clack of an almost non-existent suspension across long steel bars?
Huh?
Well, if you said yes to any of those items, you might be a railroader.
Oh.
All right, show topic, railroading. This ties back to a question that is in the community questions. I have a problem. I have a problem party, and I'm not sure how to deal with them. So I'm running the Lost Mines of Phandelver adventure path, and my players all have their own opinions on what should be going down. How do I keep my players relatively on track without railroading them? One of them is trying to go to a completely different country. I'm just not sure what to do. Did we read this one last time? I don't think we did.
No. We didn't read any. Nope.
Okay. I'm just not sure what to do. It's like I'm running different adventures for each of my players because they're all off doing their own thing. Help, please. Help me, Uncle Jay.
Here's what you do. Is you pull out the train tracks and you lay them down in a nice fashion, a nice even fashion. You get your problem players, you tie them to the goddamn railroad tracks, and you let the fucking train run over them. That's what you do. Here's what you. In fact, if anything, I know exactly what this person's talking about. Goes back to Coffin Rock. I had when I was started running Deadlands. In fact, Coffin Rock was the first thing that I started doing in Savage Worlds a couple years ago. Because it was a sandbox adventure and it's a sandbox environment. And I don't think my players really grasped that. I think they got used to being able just to kind of like they had an idea of like where they were going. Well, they had characters that were sort of like disparate. We had one guy who was supposed to be a blessed, but all he wanted to do was drink and like whore around or whatever. And that's all he literally wanted to do. He didn't really want to participate in anything else. And then we had another player who was too busy trying to like romance another player, or not another player, but an NPC that was over here. So that's what they wanted to do, is go ahead and do that. And we had a couple people that were trying to like, okay, let's investigate what's going on. But no, we just had people that were trying to do this, that, and the other. And then finally I was like, look, y'all need to figure out a reason to go do all this stuff, man. I mean, that's the core here about the game, is you need to figure out a reason to be here and a reason to buy into what's going on. Otherwise, go do something else. Go play a video game.
Let me start off by saying I love railroading my players. It's my favorite thing to do, and I'm tired of railroaders getting a bad rap. In fact, I'm going to state outright that every game master in the world is a railroader, and we should embrace this. Do you hear me? You hear me. So let's start by asking, or let's pull this question up and we can hit that. So what about your definition of railroading, Uncle Jay? Define it for me. What do you think railroading is in your own terms?
In my own terms, railroading is where you're not giving, where you have a defined path on where to take your player and where you want to take your players as far as adventure goes. You have a defined path. There's not any deviation from it. And that's pretty much what I get. Like it's pretty much, you're putting, just like a train. A train's not going to turn left because the tracks don't go left. The tracks go right. So you can't necessarily get off the tracks. So that's what railroading is. It very, in very simple And in honest terms, that's what it means. It's like you're not going to be. It's a laid out linear path that you can't really deviate from.
So wouldn't you say then that depending on how far you dial into the adventure, let's say it's on. What I mean by that is you can say that your entire adventure would be a railroad from the outside looking down as your adventure details going to the ogre cave to kill the ogre king. No matter what your players do, they're going to end up going towards that ogre king's cave to kill him. That is the broadest sense of railroading. But when you get inside the game, there's and you sort of dial the microscope in and get on sort of a one-on-one level. One of the definitions that I found was, let's say that your players are going to go kill this ogre guy, but the ogre guy, unbeknownst to your players, has a shapeshifter that he is actually sent out to bring people to the ogre guy so the ogre guy can kill him. Now, this shapeshifter shows up and is trying to, persuade the party to let him join them as an NPC. He's going to carry your bags. He's going to do your bidding. He's going to, all that kind of stuff. He swings you this tale of wanting to go kill the ogre king. And so, maybe the party's like, no, we don't want to bring him along. Sorry about your bad luck, but, go kill your own damn ogre king kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And then as a dungeon master, you're like, no, this guy wants to come along. Like he's kind of adamant. And then all of a sudden this guy keeps showing up in places. And as a game master, you sort of keep forcing this character on your players in an effort to make them, eventually you're sort of trying to wear them out. But that could be considered railroading as well. Like you're not giving them the option to walk away, which is what they want to do. You're kind of just consistently being persistent with this NPC. Would you consider that railroading as well? You start getting to a sort of a sticky wicket where you start saying when you remove all player agency, that's a railroad. That's where railroading gets defined, in a negative sense. When you don't give your players any choice whatsoever. But here's the thing, though. I don't think you're necessarily not giving your players a choice by having this NPC foisted upon them. I think what's happening here is you're just sort of like just being persistent about what's going on. I mean, they still have the right to walk away. Mm-hmm. They still have the ability to do that. And here's the thing, though, and that's kind of and that's not. I don't think that's bad in that sense. I mean, if there's an NPC that's going to want to join and they keep on refusing, I mean that breeds for an interesting sort of tale. Right.
You know
this
what
guy
I'm saying?
Keeps showing up out of the middle of nowhere. Yep. All of a sudden he's trying to say, he saves the party. Yeah. There's a lot of things that he can do, but he just keeps getting thrown in there with the idea that you're being very persistent. I find the term railroading is kind of bullshit. And what I mean by that is it's a term that gets thrown around basically as a derogatory way of calling somebody a shitty GM. And I think that's a shitty thing to say to a person. Because if you think about it, basically every freaking adventure that you've ever gone on, no matter whether it's an open sandbox or whatever, you at some point are, under the definition of railroading your players to go a certain way. They're always going to go to the kingdom of the ogre king. They're always, your adventure with what's a good example of this? So the Supers adventure. We started off in the Supers adventure that we played together. We had to go into Vietnam, and we were going to kill this dictator guy. Dictator. I love that word, dictator. But the whole adventure is basically built around us going to this guy. There is no deviation, and even if we try to deviate from going to this guy, somehow we're going to be brought around. So, in a sense, you railroaded us into this adventure, but I don't view it as that. I see it as this is our adventure. This is what we're here to do. So, why are we throwing this derogatory term of railroading around and trying to make people feel like shit for whatever reason, which I think is just hot garbage. And I think if you use that term railroading, you're an asshole and you should be slapped in the nuts.
Well, yeah, we know where you stand on this. You've made your point, abundantly clear over the years about railroading, and I think when people say that you're a railroad GM, it's a big jab to you, man, because I mean. That's the kind of saying, oh, well, Gary and his choo-choo, woohoo, that's Gary and his railroads. But at the end of the day, though, and this isn't me just, being the co-host and like defending the murder hobo here. But at the end of the day, though, you have to have some type of player buy-in with any type of scenario. If you're just and if you can't do that, if you feel that you just can't go along with what's going on with what's being played in front of you, then don't effing play the game, man. If you feel like you just can't do this, like, oh, me playing in Vietnam, or me, me in the flood, because the flood's, really a linear sort of adventure. And if you don't do something at the same time, you have to get on the train or whatever it is. If you just don't buy in as a player, then you're just being a dick. Let's be real here. I equate it to this. I equate, and this is the problem I have too. And where, I might be considered a railroader in this sense, because I spend a lot of time, crafting adventure and everything like that too. And somebody says, okay, this is what we're going to do. And somebody says, well, I don't think my character would do that because blah, blah, blah. I'm like, go home then. Go home and play a goddamn video game.
Go home
and play a video game. Because here's the thing too. I equate it. This is how I equate it. This is saying, okay, you know that you're going to a dinner party, this Friday night. You knew in advance what was going to be served. You knew in advance what was going to be served. You know that they're going to have tacos at this dinner party on Friday night. You show up at 6 o'clock. You sit down and eat tacos. You're getting tacos served in front of you. You're like, no, I want fried chicken instead. I'm like, go home. Get up and leave, man. That's what that is like. That's what it's like. Is like, what's going on. You're just being contrary. Now, I don't think, and you're thinking that you're, it sort of goes in to it, and let me know if see if you follow me here. I almost think there's almost a there's almost like this underlying antagonism between like GM and player. Like who's supposed to have more control over the story and everything like that too. I mean, you can always say that the GM isn't anything without their players, but in the same time too, the players aren't anything without the adventure, because all it is just people sitting around, playing make believe, like, I shot you, no, I got a force field, blah 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 blah, and the GM. And let's be real here, who's going to spend more time during the week, during whatever, on what's happening? The GM puts in more work. Let's be real here. Players sit down at the table. Players sit down and roll dice.
Did you? Speaking of which, man, what is Ron Blessing's new podcast, Savage Interludes? I was listening to that. He had this great one-liner where he was talking about a thing, and he's like, as soon as they were talking about character biographies, and he said, I will read your character's biography as soon as you read the lore of the world we're playing in. Do you know what I mean? As soon as you read the setting book, I'll read your bio.
That's exactly what I tell my players too. When I start hearing like, oh, well, so and so did this and this and this back in the war, I'm like, yeah, man, you made all that stuff in your head. I'm like, we're playing this game right here, where I actually have stuff written down, the stuff that matters,
right? If you bring up the term railroading, this I'm not saying this towards anybody in particular. This is just a general statement. You're just being an asshole. You know what I mean? You're trying because the reality is if you think that railroading is a bad thing in the way that it's used, every adventure ever written by anybody, you're just basically shitting on all of that. And there's some fantastic adventures that are out there. The last thing I'm going to say about this too is that in today's day and age where you're playing online, a lot of what you see is visual content. Like we have access to maps and tokens and stuff like that. And I would much rather play in a railroady adventure and, hop on the train and away I go with a guy that's prepared. He's got his material there. He knows what the scene encounters are going to be. He's got the monster stats in front of him. There's no stopping and him stuttering and farting around while he looks up things or, tries to find stuff. And, he's got the adventure laid out in the progression that it's supposed to go. There's nothing wrong with that. That is some damn solid gaming, because the story's tight. The interaction with the game master is tight. He knows the rules. He's not looking stuff up. I would much rather play with a guy that, like I said, I would much rather get on the rails and away I go. I really think that it has to do more along the lines of, like you said, the idea as to who has more emphasis or more pull on the direction of the story. And when it comes to me and my stories, I'm the guy. You're just playing at my table, mister.
I do think that any GM worth their salt is going to take some sort of collaboration. Like, here's the thing though. I'm not going to, like, if I'm playing in a Gary McCallum game and I know that we're playing in a fantasy game in ICRPG, I'm not going to say, hey, man, I'm going to want a laser blaster and I'm going to want a teleporter and I'm going to get the hell out of here. I mean, that's just ridiculous. What you got to do, if you want agency, if you want true player agency, here's the thing. Number one, it doesn't effing exist, because, at the same time, too, your agency only extends as far as, like, when it starts hurting another player, You can start when it starts infringing another player, when it starts hurting somebody else, then it's not player agency at all. That's just being a dick. You know what I'm saying?
Being a juicy ball
only
sack.
extends that far, right? You don't just because you have free form. You just think that you have the illusion of choice in an RPG doesn't give you license to go be a dick. If you think that's the case of playing an RPG, go play something else, man. Go play online where you're allowed to be a dick, and go play some first person shooter where all you got to do is just talk shit to somebody. If that's what you want to do, if you want to grief, go ahead, man. And that's the thing that I get too, is I think it's a lot of these people that just like, I don't get the freedom to be a dick, so you're railroading me. That's what that boils down to me.
Exactly. Exactly right. So yeah. In conclusion, because we're pumping 2 hours now, I just want to say that I think that the term railroading is not used properly. I think that people have this misguided perception that railroading is a bad thing. And, if you think that it is a bad thing, you're basically taking a dump on every module, every adventure, every idea that anybody has ever put out there and run you through. Because essentially they're sort of all railroads. You're here to do, accomplish this, Tomb of Horrors. You're here in the village of Hamlet. You're going to this tomb or whatever, and you're trying to make your way through the tomb and survive. You're on rails. There's certain things that just need to be accomplished. You even take a look at Keep on the Borderlands way back in the day. You show up at this little town, this little keep on the Borderlands in this certain area, and you've got the Caves of Chaos, and so you're going to the Caves of Chaos to explore and take out the bad guys that live there. Like. Yeah. It's all one giant railroad. I think as a community, we should embrace the term railroading. We should love it. We should hug it. We should squeeze it. We should tickle it by the nards if it has some, and full on embrace it. Because I think a guy that railroads you is a hell of a game master. He's obviously prepared his stuff, and this story is going in a certain direction. Now, one other thing too. How I go about this when I play is I'll have set scenes when I do my stuff, right? Like I build my scenes, I have the idea as to what I want to do. Let's say, for example, one of my players wants to go to the next kingdom over and go check out some little tidbit. I'll tell you what, for example, in ICRPG that I'm playing right now, my campaign, Matt found a piece of paper, and this piece of paper talks about a dragon in the hills. Now, Matt hasn't sidetracked me with this thing yet, but the second he does pull that piece of paper out, this is how I deal with it. I'll be like, if you guys want to go to this little side adventure, I will build it if this is what we're doing. But once I prepare the adventure, that's when it's going to take place. We're not in the middle of trying to determine why this pirate ship is attacking this village, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm not interested. I want to go find this dragon. Okay, we'll do that next adventure after you solve the adventure that we're on with the rest of your party. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I deal with it. So
yeah, there's nothing stopping them from following that paper trail somewhere else. But like not right now. If somebody wants to follow a breadcrumb trail or something like that down the road, they absolutely can. And I'm willing to I'm totally accommodating. In fact, I like giving my players sort of seeds like, hey man, you got a tragic backstory. Your brother died in this accident. Maybe the guy who killed your brother, is over here or whatever. Maybe in this town that we ended up too. Here's the main quest where you're going to take down this bad guy, but here's to say that maybe this guy who took out your brother is over here too. We can take care of that. There's nothing wrong with being accommodating, but you don't want to accommodate little babies that, that just want to like, well, I don't want to do this. I want to do my stuff. As soon as you start doing that, man, then you lost.
I was expecting your Jamie Pearson to come out there for a second.
Oh, man, I'm Pearson. You railroad too much. Man, I need player agency. Man. There you go.
I feel like this is a complete episode all of a sudden.
I think so. Now,
That's the other thing I was going to say, man. You know what? If you're going to speak poorly of railroaders, you're speaking poorly of every guy that's ever run a convention game, every guy that's ever taken months. Let's talk about Eric Lamoureux, who showed up with his kick-ass wise guys, his campaigns that he's got the maps, the minis, and everything set up for. And all of a sudden, you don't want to go to Chinatown anymore. You want to go somewhere else. What do you think's happening in that one, man?
Yeah, no, you're going to get a bullet behind your ear,
right?
I mean that's sort of the thing too. That like you're like you don't have a lot of choice in wise guys. You have to do a thing for your boss. You have to earn money. So go ahead, like, nah, I ain't feeling it today. I ain't feeling it today, guys. I'm gonna go to Walgreens. No, you're not gonna come back from Walgreens.
That's pretty much. You're gonna end up in the dumpster outside of Walgreens.
Exactly.
Let's talk
ridiculous.
Tony Fanning's Genesis game that he created that was fantastic. You end up trying to you got to go to this ball. It's like a Halloween sort of costume ball, and you sort of spend the majority of what you're doing. You arrive on your flotilla, your little floating balloon kind of a deal that we were on, this floating ship. We had some issues with the customs guys that we had to work our way through. As we came out, we sort of walked through the town a little bit. He described some of the buildings and places that were on fire. We ran into a little Asian street gang of 10-year-old kids. We had to deal with them. And then we went to the house of the lady that used to be, that ran our guild, because we're essentially a guild of... I think we were like a group of smugglers, and that's sort of what our gist is. We smuggle stuff from place to place. And so our ex-boss is getting married, and we're going to this ball thing, and we had to find gowns and stuff like that, right? You just imagine, like, that's on tracks, whether you like to think or not, because at no point are you going to be able to say, I don't want to go to the ball. Right. I'm going to go hang out with these kids, and I'm going to take over this little street gang of, this little Asian street gang over here. And that's going to be my gist. And that's the point at which Tony would have looked at me and said, you go have fun doing that. Right. Yep. The rest of us are carrying on to this ball. Right. So, it doesn't really matter, like sort of what scenario you're in, whether it's a written adventure or whether you're going to a convention, man. You sit down to play a game. And I want to say 99.9% of the time, at some point, you're essentially getting railroaded. And get on board, go with the frickin' story, man.
I'm gonna say one little thing here, just to sort of like sum up my point in summation, and just agree with you in this sense. A couple years ago, I was running riffs. I was running Savage Riffs. And we got done. It was I think it was post Garnet Town Gambit. We had something cooked up that I had something going on, and I had one player, and that's actually I was running Savage Riffs, but for a bunch of like high schoolers graduated. And so we got done doing one other thing, and I had one player. I said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." And I had one player said, "Well, my character didn't want to do this, so she's going to go do this." I said, "All right, good, go sit outside." And the player looked at me. I said, "Yeah, if you don't want to be a part of this, you go sit outside." And she went to go sit outside. And I said, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Well, I'm going to go sit outside then." I said, "I don't want you to go sit outside. That's the thing. I want you to have a buy-in. I want you to participate in what's going on." And she started. I think it just kind of didn't click in her head or whatever. I was like, "Yeah, this is what happens here. This is what you're here for. You're here to sit down and play with other people. You're not off to do your own thing. If you're going to do that, you can sit outside, and you're not going to get any snacks, and you're not going to get any drinks or whatever. You're going to sit outside in the hot sun."
Did you push a bowl of hot oil towards her at any point?
No, I did not. No, I didn't. No.
Get your camera out.
No. No.
Yeah, well, let that be a lesson to you people that talk shit about railroading.
It is like, have some buy-in. I mean, if you want to do something else, then do something else. But just realize if you're going to sit there at a table where somebody has taken the time to make a fun adventure for your punk ass that you're not appreciative for. Just realize that too. Somebody put in a lot of work for your dumb ass to have fun. And if you're not wanting to do that, then go do something else. Right. If that's not fun for you, if that doesn't feel for you, go do something else, man. Nobody needs you.
Nobody needs you.
Yep.
Players are a dime a dozen, and you mostly suck.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because you don't read.
Right. Because you don't read. All right. That's it. We're going to put a pin in this bad boy. Over to the outro and contacts info section. That's it for this edition of the Murder Hobo RPG Show. We hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, we don't give a shit.
If you're interested in submitting to the community questions so you can hear us poke fun at you and not answer your questions honestly, you can do so at murderhoboshow@gmail.com. Otherwise, send your hate mail to .fart.
I like that it's the dot fart. You can also get us on Twitter at The Murder Hobo Show, on YouTube at The Murder Hobo Show, where I show you how to make three-dimensional battle maps for role-playing in Tabletop Simulator, among other stuff. You can watch me do this live on Twitch at Murder Hobo Show, or your best bet is to catch us both at MeWe. And as always, you can find all of the great nerds from the Nerds International Show on MeWe as well. For examples, such classics as...
Thoughts of a Barbarian featuring Matt Stark. Now, Matt Stark, the guy's forgotten more than I know about RPGs. And also, too, Matt Stark is also really crafty, too. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a mix of, on his blog, you're going to get a mix of old school, a lot of old school like gaming reviews. He's a big OSR guy, but also too he's got some really informative crafting tips on what he's got going on too. He's always got something. He like Matt Stark, I'd have to say, is like the Renaissance guy of like Nerds International. Like he does a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's artsy, he's fartsy, he's craftsy, he's wafsy, whatever the hell that means.
Check out what he's got going on. In fact, what is he talking about? I think he's got something going on about cyberpunk. That's what he's talking about on his latest blog. So that's always a fun, that's always a hoot.
Right?
To go read about.
He's smarty, we're farty, he's witty, we're shitty.
There you go.
Also check out Matthew Jones, Imaginary Ramblings. Did you see the post that he put up there today with that Packy one-chip challenge thing? Oh, man, I so hope he ends up in the hospital shitting his guts out, man.
He's got to record it if he does.
A couple of guys with IBS and Crohn's disease, and this little punk is eating the friggin' one-chip challenge chip. Oh, man, I hope your intestines flare up and you, like, shit blood for a week, dude. Yep. And record it so I can laugh.
Yep, and then you have to have a cement colonoscopy to make sure everything stays up there.
Mm-hmm. Damn straight. Your butt's gonna look like a friggin' purple worm from Deadlands trying to sneak out of the sand.
You can find these things that we discussed in the show notes, organized by the most recent at the top, over on murderhoboshow.podbean.com.
And lastly, this podcast is just a small part of the RPG content we create for the community. If you play RPGs online, head over to the Murder Hobo Show. Kind of that part up. I think I already said this, and I think I rewrote this, but let me just say it anyways, right? And then I changed this to be up at the top, so I'm going to take this out of here. Thanks for listening, and be sure to tune in next time. We're going to have another action-packed show where we're going to talk about things we know little to nothing about and sound professional doing it. Have a great gaming week, everybody. We're out of here. Say goodbye, Uncle Jay.
Goodbye, folks.
Yes. The Murder Hobo Show is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are on property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Murder Hobo Show, copyright 2019. All rights reserved.